are listening to the Pharmacist Answers podcast. I'm Cynthia, the pharmacist, and today you'll get your questions answered and your curiosity cured. One of my passions and one of the reasons I'm on Periscope and doing the things that I do and talking about the things that I like to talk about is because I'm very passionate about people having the tools and the information and the confidence to go into whatever healthcare situation they need to go into for themselves or their family, and have the confidence to hold conversations with the providers and the healthcare professionals that are helping you make the decisions. You understanding what they're saying to you, and you being able to communicate clearly what your decisions are and your feelings are about the treatment or whatever the health situation is going on. And so in this month of October, when we're dealing with kids sick from school and flu shots and flu season and then insurance decisions, I'm starting to see which people are actually getting the message, whether they're getting it from me or they're just kind of getting it through osmosis and just the environment, who are actually getting the message of taking charge of their health. And so there's three things that I've kind of pinpointed to be the three characteristics of how I can tell that somebody who walks up to me and starts talking to me, how I know that they've got it, they understand, and they're on the right track to taking charge of their health and not being swayed by what the political scene says about healthcare or what the media hype says about healthcare, and they're not going to be bullied by healthcare professionals who say, I have the doctorate degree and this is what I say. The first characteristic that I notice in people is that they stop placing blame. It stops being my fault as the pharmacist because I didn't get the facts from the doctor. It stops being my fault because the nurse hasn't called me back yet. On the flip side, it stops being the doctor's office's fault for having 400 other patients to take care of and they haven't gotten to answer the message or find the answer that we were looking for. Because we expect things to be so instantaneous because we have the internet and we have all of these things, that if an electronic communication between the doctor's office and my pharmacy isn't instantaneous, then it's like their whole world is destroyed. And in reality, electronic communication takes time. It's not as instantaneous as we like. Now, it's a lot faster than snail mail, and it's a lot faster than everybody having to write things out by hand and then hand it to you and you drive across town to wherever you need to take it to. You know, it's faster than that, but it's still not instantaneous. So when people come up and I don't have the perfect answer for them or say, oh yeah, it's all fixed, they stop placing the blame on me directly or on the doctor's office directly, and they're able to take an unbiased view of what the situation is, and then from there they're able to make a decision. So that leads into the second characteristic, is that the people who are actually starting to get it and take their own responsibility for their own health, they choose to get the whole story. So instead of placing the blame and it being my fault and then me being the one that has to do everything, they say, okay, well, what have you done and what information have you gotten back? And then if I can tell them, well, I left this message at this time, because I've learned in medicine and in probably a lot of other industries, if it's not documented, then it didn't happen. So everything I do, every conversation I have, every phone call I make, every message that I leave on a machine, I have to document. And I document with the date that I did it, what I said, what number I called, the time stamp that I hung up the phone and it said 2:05 p.m. Then I said, I left this message at 2:05 p.m. Because some doctor's offices, if you've ever called a doctor's office, sometimes their message will say, if your message is left before 11 a.m., then we will call you back during our lunch hour. And if your message is left after 3 p.m., then we will call you at the end of our workday. But if your message is left after 3 p.m. or after 4 p.m., then your message may not be returned until the next business day. And they do that because, one, they don't have all the leisure to answer every single phone that rings, because they have people coming in and out of their doors to take care of. If I know that the message said that and I left it within a certain window, then that gives me the power to inform the patient to say, hey, their message said if I left the message between 12 and 3, then they'll call me back before they leave the office for the day. So if they close at 6, then I know I should hear back from them before 6. And sometimes that doesn't always happen. Sometimes they get too busy. Sometimes my question may be too complicated for them to be able to answer in that amount of time, and they still have to call me back the next business day. But having the documentation and then the patient wanting to know what I said and what I did so they can have the whole picture to know exactly what happened with their medicine or their situation, so then they can make the decision. So then the third characteristic that I've noticed in these people who are starting to get the message and it's really starting to click for them to take charge of their health is that they make decisive actions. If they know that I've called the doctor 3 days in a row and nobody is returning my phone calls, then they don't sit around and expect me to call the doctor 3 more times and just wait to see what happens. They'll say, all right, I'll call them, because then they may have some more power to say, my pharmacist has been trying really hard to get this information from you, and I don't know what the problem is because it sounds easy, so you should probably get them a really quick answer. And the patient can sometimes have more sway than I do as a pharmacist, and so people who are taking charge make decisions based on the information that they are able to gather from me or gather from their doctor's office to say, this is what I'm going to do. Rather than waiting on everyone else to try to solve their problem for them, they take action and make the decision. And that's probably true not just for patients who are making decisions about their health care. It's most likely true about a whole lot of other people in a whole lot of other situations. The big picture is that it's just a matter of taking responsibility. Taking responsibility for the things that you care about and the things that you want to happen. If you want it to happen, sometimes you have to do it yourself. You can't just wait on everybody to hand it to you. You can't just wait on everybody to do it for you or try to read your mind and then figure out what you want. And so having the mindset of saying, I can take charge of this particular aspect of my life, and there are people around me that I'm trusting to help me with that, which in my case would be pharmacists and nurses and doctors, but also being able to say, if they're not holding up their end of the deal, then there's a decision I can make. I can have a conversation with them as an adult and say, this is what I expected you to do. You did not meet my expectations. Or it's deciding to choose a different professional to help you with that situation because one did not meet your expectations. Rather than just saying, oh, well, I live in a small town and sometimes it's like, there's only like 3 doctors to choose from. But you don't always have to go to the one that you've always gone to. You don't always have to have the same insurance company that you've always had just because that's the insurance you've always had. If they're not meeting your needs and holding up to your expectations, then you have the right to shop around and choose. And that's kind of the capitalist mindset and that free market that I wish America had more of, because if one place isn't meeting my expectations and isn't giving me the service that I desire, then I have the right to pick another place to go, and another place should have the right to exist to compete with that other one, because competition in that situation is healthy, to have a competitive market so that if one place isn't meeting the expectations, then the next place has the chance to beat them out and get their customers and please the people if the other place isn't suiting everyone's needs. And so that's the way the health insurance works. That's the way doctors' offices works. That's the way pharmacies work. But that's one of the things that I've started noticing when I'm having conversations with people is more people are taking that responsibility, and they're not blaming other people for the stuff not being done. They're getting the big picture so they can make an objective decision, and then they're actually taking action on the decision that they make and what they choose is best for them. Y'all have a good morning. Thanks for listening to the Pharmacist Answers podcast. The pharmacy is now closed. You can post your questions and comments on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/pharmanswerspod. Or you can email the show at pharmacistanswershere@gmail.com. You can tweet me or message me on Twitter at Sin Hendricks. You can find the show notes at pharmacistanswershere.wordpress.com. Pharmacist Answers broadcasts live on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9:02 a.m. Eastern Time on the Periscope app. You can follow me at Sin Hendricks or view in your web browser at periscope.tv/Sin Hendricks. See you next time on the Pharmacist Answers podcast.